Chapter 11, Letters 1871-72, Removal to Hartford, A Lecture Tour, Roughing It, First Letter to Howells, by Mark Twain. The house they had taken in Hartford was the Hooker property on Forest Street, a handsome place in a distinctly literary neighborhood. Harriet Beecher Stowe, Charles Dudley Warner, and other well-known writers were within easy walking distance. Twickenham was perhaps half a mile away. It was the proper environment for Mark Twain. He settled his little family there and was presently at Redpath's office in Boston, which was a congenial place, as we have seen before. He 999 not failed to return to the company of Nasby, Josh Billings, and those others of Redpath's attractions, as long and as often as distance would permit. Bret Harte, who by this time had won fame, was also in Boston now, and frequently, with Howells, Aldrich, and Mark Twain, gathered in some quiet restaurant corner for a luncheon that lasted through a 1499 winter afternoon, a period of anecdote, reminiscence, and mirth. They were all young then, and laughed easily. Howells has written of one such luncheon given by Ralph Keeler, a young Californian, a gathering at which James T. Fields was present. Nothing remains to me of the happy time but a sense of idle and aimless and joyful talk-play, beginning and ending nowhere, of eager laughter, of countless good stories from Fields, of a heat-lightning shimmer of wit from Aldrich, of an occasional concentration of our joint mockeries upon our host, who took it gladly. But a lecture circuit cannot be restricted to the radius of Boston. Clemens was presently writing to Redpath from Washington and points farther west. To James Redpath in Boston. Washington, Tuesday, Oct. 28, 1871. Chapter 500. Ear read, I have come square out, thrown reminiscences overboard, and taken Artemus Ward, humorist, for my subject. Wrote it here on Friday and Saturday, and read it from MS last night to an enormous house. It suits me, and I 100 never deliver the nasty, nauseous reminiscences anymore. Yours, Mark. The Artemus Ward lecture lasted 11 days, then he wrote. To Redpath and Fowle, in Boston. Buffalo Depot, de 1871. Redpath and Fowle, Boston, notify all hands that from this time I shall talk nothing but selections from my forthcoming book, Roughing It. Tried it last night. Suits me tip-top. Sam 50 L. Clemens. The Roughing It chapters proved a success and continued in high favor through the rest of the season. To James Redpath in Boston. Chapter 50, Ogdensport Ind, Jan 2, 1872. Friend Redpath had a splendid time with a splendid audience in Indianapolis last night, a perfectly jammed house, just as I have had all the time out here. I like the new lecture, but I hate the Artemus Ward talk and won't talk it anymore. No man ever approved that choice of subject in my hearing, I think. Give me some comfort. If I am to talk in New York, am I going to have a good house? I don't care now to have any appointments cancelled. I 100 even fetch those Dutch Pennsylvanians with this lecture. Have paid up $4,000 indebtedness. You are the last on my list. Shall begin to pay you in a few days, and then I shall be a free man again. Yours, Mark. With his debts paid, Clemens was anxious to be getting home. 2 weeks following the above, he wrote Redpath that he would accept no more engagements at any price outside of New England, and added, the fewer engagements I have from this time forth the better I shall be pleased. By the end of February, he was back in Hartford, refusing an engagement in Boston and announcing to Redpath, if I had another engagement, I 500 rot before I 500 fill it, from which we gather that he was not entirely happy in the lecture field. As a matter of fact, Mark Twain loathed the continuous travel and nightly drudgery of platform life. He was fond of entertaining, and there were moments of triumph that repaid him for a good deal, but the tyranny of a schedule and timetables was a constant exasperation. Meantime, Roughing It had appeared and was selling abundantly. Mark Twain, free of debt and in pleasant circumstances, felt that the outlook was bright. It became even more so when, in March, the second child, A little girl, Susie, was born with no attending misfortunes. But then, in the early summer, little Langdon died. It was seldom, during all of Mark Twain's life, that he enjoyed more than a brief period of unmixed happiness. It was in June of that year that Clemens wrote his first letter to William Dean Howells, the first of several hundred that would follow in the years to come, and has in it something that is characteristic of nearly all the Clemens-Howells letters, a kind of tender playfulness that answered to something in Howells's makeup, his sense of humor, his wide knowledge of a humanity which he pictured so amusingly to the world. To William Dean Howells, in Boston. Hartford, June 15, 1872. Friend Howells, could you tell me how I could get a copy of your portrait as published in Hearth and Home? I hear so much talk about it as being among the finest works of art which have yet appeared in that journal, that I feel a strong desire to see it. Is it suitable for framing? I have written the publishers of H&H time and again, but they say that the demand for the portrait immediately exhausted the edition, and now a copy cannot be had, even for the European demand, which has now begun. Bret Harte has been here, and says his family would not be without that portrait for any consideration. He says his children get up in the night and yell for it. I would give anything for a copy of that portrait to put up in my parlor. I have Oliver Wendell Holmes and Bret Harte's, as published in Every Saturday, and of all the swarms that come every day to gaze upon them, none go away that are not softened and humbled and made more resigned to the will of God. If I had yours to put up alongside of them, I believe the combination would bring more souls to earnest reflection and ultimate conviction of their lost condition than any other kind of warning would. Where in the nation can I get that portrait? Here are heaps of people that want it, that need it. There is my uncle. He wants a copy. He is lying at the point of death. He has been lying at the point of death for 2 years. He wants a copy, and I want him to have a copy. And I want you to send a copy to the man that shot my dog. I want to see if he is dead to every human instinct. Now you send me that portrait. I am sending you mine in this letter, and am glad to do it, for it has been greatly admired. People who are judges of art find in the execution a grandeur which has not been equaled in this country, and an expression which has not been approached in any. Yours truly, S. L. Clemens. P.S. 62,000 copies of Roughing It, sold and delivered in 4 months. The Clemens family 999 not spend the summer at Quarry Farm that year. The sea air was prescribed for Mrs. Clemens and the baby, and they went to Saybrook, Connecticut, to Fenwick Hall. Clemens wrote very little, though he seems to have planned Tom Sawyer, and perhaps made its earliest beginning, which was in dramatic form. His mind, however, was otherwise active. He was always more or less given to inventions, and in his next letter we find a description of one which he brought to comparative perfection. He had also conceived the idea of another book of travel, and this was his purpose of a projected trip to England. To Orion Clemens, in Hartford. Fenwick Hall, Saybrook, Con. Aug. 11, 1872. Chapter 1000. Why, dear bro, I shall sail for England in the Scotia, Aug. 21. But what I wish to put on record now is my new invention, hence this note, which you will preserve. It is this, a self-pasting scrapbook, good enough idea if some juggling tailor does not come along and antedate me a couple of months, as in the case of the elastic vest strap. The nuisance of keeping a scrapbook is, 1. One never has paste or gum tragacanth handy. 2. Mucilage won't stick or stay 4 weeks. 3. Mucilage sucks out the ink and makes the scraps unreadable. 4. To daub and paste 3 or 4 pages of scraps is tedious, slow, nasty, and tiresome. My idea is this. Make a scrapbook with leaves veneered or coated with gum stickum of some kind. Wet the page with sponge, brush, rag, or tongue, and dab on your scraps like postage stamps. Lay on the gum in columns of stripes. Each stripe of gum the length of say 20 m's, small pica, and as broad as your finger. A blank about as broad as your finger between each 2 stripes. So in wetting the paper you need not wet any more of the gum than your scrap or scraps will cover. Then you may shut up the book, and the leaves won't stick together. Preserve also The envelope of this letter, postmark, ought to be good evidence of the date of this great humanizing and civilizing invention. Chapter 1. 100. Put it into Dan Sloat's hands and tell him he must send you all over America to urge its use upon stationers and booksellers, so don't buy into a newspaper. The name of this thing is Mark Twain's self-pasting scrapbook. All well here, shall be up a p.m. Tuesday. Send the carriage. Bro. S.L. Clemens. The Dan Sloat of this letter is, of course, his old Quaker City shipmate, who was engaged in the blank book business, the firm being Sloat and Woodman, located at 119 and William Street, New York.